Al, nice to see you.
Thank you.
So excited about tomorrow?
It's so exciting. You know, I've never done anything like this, and it's probably the most exciting thing I've ever done. And I can tell you, waiting in New Hampshire for those votes to come in, even though people thought I might win and all, and then to see them come in even better than anticipated, it was one of the most exciting evenings for me.
All right. Well, you've had a lot going on in your life. There's been a response from the Vatican. The spokesperson says that the spat that you and the Pope had, or at least was in the media, has said it is in no way a personal attack on or an indication how to vote. That's what the Pope.
That's very nice. Look, with me, I think he's a terrific person, frankly. And I was a little bit surprised to hear it yesterday, you know, to be honest with you, with the Pope. But to me, it's illegal immigration. It's illegal immigration. People are coming across the border. There's tremendous crime happening. I turned out to be right on that, you know, with Kate and with Jamil and with so many people. But tremendous crime, and there's also drugs pouring across the border. And, you know, I just won New Hampshire, and I will tell you that in New Hampshire, the biggest single issue they have is heroin. They have a huge heroin problem up there. This gorgeous, gorgeous state with beautiful trees and beautiful meadows and everything's beautiful. And the biggest problem they have is heroin, and it comes right across the border. And I said, I will stop it. So I don't think the Pope really understood in terms of the crime problem and the problems of illegal immigration. And the fact that he said that, I'm very honored by it.
Were you surprised that yesterday, or whenever you heard to wake up or to find out that you and the Pope were embroiled in this global dispute?
Well, maybe surprised isn't quite strong enough. How about shocked?
I was shocked.
They said, the Pope just made a statement about you. I said, the Pope? What did I do? I said, was it good or bad? They said, you won't like it. But essentially it was, you know, I think the Mexican government probably said that a man named Trump wants to close up the border. And, you know, I'm not closing it. People are going to come in, but they have to come in legally. But we're going to build the wall, and it's going to happen, and it's going to be very easy to do, and it's very inexpensive to do, by the way, if you know how to do like I do, you know, build. But we're going to have great borders. We're going to have borders. You know, without borders, we don't have a country. And that border is just like a piece of Swiss cheese. People just pour over it.
BuzzFeed is reporting that they have an audio tape of you back from September 2002 in which you were asked about the Iraq War, and which you said that asked whether you're for it or not, and you said, I guess so, something to that effect.
Very weak, very timid. By the way, I heard the tape, okay. And that was long before the war started. And it was a very, like, I guess so. That was Howard's a friend of mine. That was the first time that I was ever asked about it. It was the first time. And I sort of said, I guess so. And then 7, 8, 9 months later, I guess, the war started. By that time, I had already gone that I was absolutely opposed to it. I just thought it would destabilize the Middle East. I was right. I thought that if you take out Iraq, Iran will take over the Middle East. That's exactly what's happening. I mean, I've called it. And they're taking over the oil. You know, Iraq has the second largest oil reserves in the world, and Iran is getting that for nothing. It's ridiculous. So I was always opposed to it. And in 2003, you see that I was opposed to it, because that's when articles started coming out. Remember also, I wasn't a politician. Nobody really cared what I thought about the war. Nobody would really ask me. I guess Howard might have asked me at that early point, but that was long before the war started. By the time I had a chance to think about it, I was against. And
why?
Because I always felt it was a destabilization of the Middle East. I'm not, a lot of people say temperament. I think I have the best temperament. On all the stage, I'm the only one that said, don't go into the war. And by the way, even if some of the pundits said, even if he said it in 2003, where it's actually recorded in 2003, that was still being against the war. That was a long time ago. That was before anybody was. I mean, for the most part, people absolutely wanted to go into the war. Number one, there were no weapons of mass destruction. But this was one of the great bad decisions of all time. It was perhaps, I mean, you could put it as the worst decision ever made in the history of our country. What we have done is $2 trillion, many more $1 trillion because of it, but $2 trillion, we haven't been able to fix up our own country. We lost thousands of lives, thousands of young, great people, thousands. And what else did we lose? We have wounded warriors all over the place. And you know where we are right now? Lower. Had Saddam Hussein lived, he used to kill terrorists, all right? Had our presidents gone to the beach and relaxed and gone swimming, we would have been better off. We're lower now than we were when we started the war in Iraq. So it was one of the really horrible decisions, and all of the problems that we have now stem from going into Iraq.
I spoke to Prime Minister Tony Blair, former Prime Minister Tony Blair, a number of years ago, and he said that he agreed with President Bush on that decision because everybody thought that there were weapons of mass destruction, that was the intelligence they were getting.
They made a mistake.
they made a mistake, and I mean, should they have done differently?
Well, and by the way, Tony Blair now thinks it was a great error. I mean, I've seen.
I
I've
understand.
Seen, you know, he thinks it was a great error, and Jeb Bush, who was unable to answer the question. You know, Jeb Bush was absolutely unable when he announced that he was running for president. They asked him, was it good or bad? He started by saying it was good, then bad. Took him 5 days to finally get it out. You know, he went to his pollster and he finally got it right. But he ended up saying that it was a mistake, and it was a tremendous mistake, a traumatic mistake. The infrastructure of our country is absolutely dying. Our roads, our highways, our bridges, our tunnels, our airports are a mess. You look at our airports. I go to other countries. You see airports, and you do too. You see airports like there's nothing like it in the world. I mean, some of the great structures in the world are airports. And we fly into LaGuardia, where you have the potholes all over the place. I mean, we're like a third world country, right in the middle of New York City. So we made a terrible mistake. All of those trillions could have been spent on our country. We would have been much better off.
So how do you unravel that now? Because we are where we are. We're still there,
right.
and we're still spending money. The world is very destabilized. So how do you unravel that as president?
Well, and if you remember, President Bush said, you know, on the aircraft carrier, essentially, it's over, the war is won. Okay, that was a long time ago, and it turned out to be just the opposite. It got much worse, and now it's worse than ever. You have to take out ISIS. You have to understand, I'm the one that said, don't do it, but now you're in. And Obama did a horrible job of getting out also. In all fairness, Obama got a horrible job. He gave a date, he moved everybody out, he did it too fast, a lot of things he did wrong. And we picked the wrong people to run Iraq. Iraq was run by a man who absolutely, he created ISIS because he wouldn't let everybody be inclusive, and he created ISIS. Okay, you have to take ISIS out. You have to take them out, and you have to take them out without question. And it has to be done in a very, very quick and surgical manner. But ISIS has to go.
But it's metastasized now all over the world. You've got North Africa with those terrorist groups that have declared allegiance to Al-Qaeda or to ISIS. I mean, it is
this
all over the world.
This all happened because of the war, I mean, a large part of it, because of the decision to go into Iraq. You know, Saddam Hussein, bad guy, right? He was a bad guy. But he did one thing well. He killed terrorists. There was nothing happening in Iraq. The terrorists were killed. He was very good at killing terrorists. And once he was gone, now Harvard University is Iraq for terrorists. In other words, you want to be a terrorist, it's the Harvard. You go to Iraq. And he used to kill the terrorists. You didn't have terrorists in Iraq. That's the one place they wouldn't go. They wouldn't go other places also where they took a tough stance. But now you have to do something about ISIS because they're chopping off heads. They want very powerful weapons. They're looking for very powerful weapons, and we have no choice. You know, if this was 100 years ago, I'd say forget it. If it was 50 years ago, I'd say forget it. But we're living in an age of very powerful weapons. You now have